The seemingly endless feud between Keith Olbermann and Bill O'Reilly has been fascinating in a car wreck kind of way, and sometimes downright nasty. The New York Times tried to declare the hostilities over earlier this week. That turned out to be a tad premature. I reported last year that the top executives at both corporations tried to get their talk show host to cool it. After all, Olbermann was attacking O'Reilly on MSNBC almost every night, while O'Reilly was on Fox slamming Jeff Immelt, the top honcho at NBC's corporate parent, General Electric.
Bill O'Reilly, today's worst person in the world.
Jeffrey Immelt is a despicable human being.
But the effort by Fox's Rupert Murdoch and Roger Ailes, NBC's Jeff Zucker, and Jeff Immelt fell short. The verbal combat continued. Last weekend, the New York Times said a ceasefire had been reached. But Olbermann was quoted as saying that he wasn't part of any deal. He had announced weeks earlier that he was ending his mockery of O'Reilly because of the seriousness of the Fox host attacks on George Tiller, the abortion doctor who was later murdered. Fox's Roger Ailes and GE's Jeff Immelt did privately hammer out an agreement of sorts last spring, but it wasn't for a ceasefire, just an understanding that O'Reilly and Olbermann would stick to the issues and tone down the personal invective. But when the Times quoted a GE spokesman as praising the agreement, Olbermann felt he had to demonstrate that he hadn't been muzzled by the corporate bosses. 48 hours later, he did just that, bestowing his Worst Person in the World awards, starting with the Times.
The bronze to Brian Stelter of the New York Times. What problem? Mr. Stelter asked me at least twice last week if there was such a deal, and I told him on and off the record there was not.
Next, the liberal firebrand went after Fox.
Tonight's runner-up, Bill the Clown, but our winner, Rupert Murdoch. How would you like to be Roger Ailes right now, or Bill O'Reilly, or anybody else who thinks they decide what goes on, even for a minute on Fox News Channel?
O'Reilly responded 2 days later, aided by a legitimate news story that GE had just paid $50 million to settle federal allegations that it cooked the books to mislead investors.
GE defrauds the public, has to pay $50 million in fines, but could conceivably use taxpayer loan money to do it. Amazing. Situation directly touches the president because NBC News, owned by GE, has been perhaps Barack Obama's biggest supporter in the media. And Jeff Immelt was rewarded for that when President Obama appointed him to his Economic Advisory Board.
Here we go again. Now, there's nothing wrong with network commentators taking each other on over issues and their own rhetoric, but the extraordinarily personal nature of this Olbermann-O'Reilly slugfest is making both sides look bad, as their bosses know all too well.